Fuck nigga, and it's like that. Welcome back. We finna take it back to New York with Sex, Money, Murda. Now I kinda never really heard of these cats right here, but we finna find out about this young nigga. His name is Peter Rolak, I believe that's his name. Anyway, we finna get into this nigga. We finna see what's up. He from the Briggy Bronx, you feel me? And if you know anything about the Briggy Bronx out in New York is treacherous. You feel me? They used to burn houses down back in the 80s and shit. The landlords used to burn the houses down for insurance money, so a lot of people was homeless back then. A lot of bullshit was happening during the crack epidemic and even during the 70s somewhere. So we finna see what's up.
Pistol Pete was one of the wildest gangsters from the Bronx. He got his name, Pistol, because he was one of the biggest shooters in New York history. By the time he was 21, Pistol Pete was even rumored to have caught over 30 bodies. Rappers nowadays talk about smoking dead ops, but back in Pistol Pete's time, he was known for holding wet t-shirt contests. A wet t-shirt contest was a term that Pistol Pete used to describe murders, where he would try to shoot his victims enough times to leave their t-shirts soaked in blood. In the 1990s, Pistol Pete made a name for himself as the leader of a violent gang named Sex, Money, Murda. SMM was created in the Soundview neighborhood in the Bronx. Their signature was to pull up on bikes and spray their ops with Uzis. SMM quickly grew into a large organization that had influence in all 5 boroughs and across the eastern seaboard. Many of your favorite New York rappers, including Nas and 50 Cent, would talk about SMM in their music. 50 Cent has even said that he's going to make a show about them. That's because SMM's influence on New York is undeniable. The gang still operates today, with popular Bronx drill rappers like K-Flock claiming SMM. So, let's get straight into the crazy story of Pistol Pete, a certified savage. Pistol Pete was born Peter Rolak in 1974. He was from the Bronx and grew up in an infamous neighborhood known as Soundview. The Soundview and Castle Hill sections of the Bronx were some of the most dangerous places in New York and were well known for drugs and violence. When Pete was 3, his father left the family, leaving his mother to raise Pete on her own. Pete's father was a hustler and would be in and out of jail for much of Pete's early life. But his father was eventually arrested and sent to prison for 50 years after catching a drug case while working with legendary New York drug kingpin Nicky Barnes. Pete was a normal kid while he was still a
Ain't shit normal about this nigga. This nigga daddy was working for Nicky Barnes. Nigga, Nicky Barnes is a super duper fucking legend. He a super duper snitch, but he a super duper legend in the streets. That's a big ass motherfucking drug lord right there. We just finna skip past that shit, nigga. 1, 2, this is what the fuck I keep saying to niggas about not being in any child's life. You see, this nigga didn't have his father in his life. A lot of these niggas don't got their fathers in their life. And it ain't because the niggas don't want to be there necessarily sometimes. In some cases, kind of like this one, where nigga can't be there because they so caught up in their damn lifestyle. But that is a choice by choosing not to be there. And when you doing these things, you never know where your child is gonna grow. You never know how they gonna grow because you're not nurturing them. You're not watering that flower. You're not doing nothing to that plant. You away from it.
Catholic school. But after he switched to a public high school, his mother said that she noticed Pete started to change. Despite not having him in his life, Pete would grow up idolizing his father. In public school, he would start mixing with the wrong crowd, and being the son of a notorious hustler, he felt compelled to live up to his father's name. Pete was very charismatic, and he quickly became a leader. By the age of 17, his mom could no longer handle it, so she sent him to live with his father's friend. However, this only made things worse. His father's friend was also a hustler and took Pete under his wing, putting him onto the drug game. He would supply Pete with drugs, which Pete would then distribute with his little crew of friends. Pete started Sex, Money, Murda in 1993. Sex, Money, Murda sounds like,
I want to say this right quick. Bitch, if I give you my child to protect and make sure they good, please do not put them on the street and make them do some shit that I don't want them doing. Bitch, I gave you my child to give them structure, give them boundaries. I gave you my child to be like a father figure, not to go send them off and do some dumb shit. You making a nigga worse. See, this is what the fuck the problem is as far as black men. They don't be thinking. Black men don't use this. Black men, because this is a black woman using this. Black men wasn't using this as per usual. Black men don't be using this. Nigga, use this. Nigga, use this. Bitch ass nigga.
questionable name for a gang, but there's a backstory to it. Pete didn't invent that name off the top of his head. Sex, Money, Murda was actually a popular phrase associated with Soundview. For example, people would say, I'm from Soundview, where it's all about sex, money, and murder. Pete and his crew simply ran with that name. Pete would also start going by a new name, Pistol Pete. SMM quickly developed a reputation as one of the wildest and most violent crews in New York. Their exploits would turn into local legend. They would rob and extort drug dealers and anyone else who had something they wanted. If Pistol Pete wanted your chain, he was going to take it. SMM was also one of the crews that would stick people for their jewels at the legendary Tunnel nightclub. But one story really stands out. Pistol Pete was the type of person who loved the drama. So, if he knew that the stick-up kids were lurking, Pistol Pete would tell all his friends to hand him their chains so he could put them on, daring someone to come try and rob. He picked up that name, Pistol Pete, because he loved busting his gun. His friends would sometimes have to calm him down because Pete was about to bug out and kill someone on a busy busy street. The only thing Pistol Pete loved more than sunning people was making money, and he would become a millionaire before he turned 20. Pistol Pete.
I want to say this real fast, bro. These YNs be the young niggas. Did they be thinking they own one, bro? But the young niggas back then, where it was no cameras and shit like that deep, and the police couldn't just trace your sketch on film and see that you was the shadow behind the shadow behind the shadow and shit. It was a different time frame. That nigga was said he was gonna kill a nigga in broad daylight, and the homies had to stop him. Not the police, not the this, the that. They tried to stop this nigga in broad daylight, and then he holding wet t-shirt contests for niggas. Hey, if anybody know what the fuck, everybody should know what the fuck a wet t-shirt contest is. So if he was the nigga to start the saying or the knowing of that, that's hilarious.
Sound view on lock and would control the drugs moving in and out of the neighborhood. He also moved drugs out of state, distributing cocaine from New York to places in Pennsylvania and the Carolinas. But one trip to North Carolina would come back to haunt Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete would usually come along on out-of-state trips as an enforcer. His reputation preceded him. People would know not to play games when Pistol Pete was in town. On a routine trip down to North Carolina, one of SMM's customers was causing a problem. He owed Pistol Pete $90,000 for some cocaine, but wasn't able to pay. Pistol Pete wanted to kill him on the spot, but ended up giving him an extra day. The next day, the dealer ghosted him. Pistol Pete got angry and said he was going to go after the dealer's family. But before he could leave the meet, police rushed in and arrested Pistol Pete and his crew. He later found out that the
I'ma say this, that shit sounds shady as fuck. If a drug dealer disappear on you and he owe you some money, it's a reason for that. Either he already planned to run off on you, or he's about to set your ass up. And I say this to say that niggas who getting money like that in that realm, in that field, they know how sensitive these things be. So they know the repercussions of what's gonna come behind it. So believe it or not, they already planned ahead of this shit. So either he finna set you up or he finna set your ass up. So I would advise niggas to be paying attention to that part too if you out here doing anything.
dealer he had been working with was actually a long-time police informant. A police canine then searched the van that Pistol Pete came to North Carolina in. The dog indicated there were drugs in the car. The police weren't able to find them. Pistol Pete and his crew installed trap compartments in all the vehicles they used to ship drugs out of state. The police caught on and then impounded the van so they could take it apart and find the trap compartment. They then booked Pistol Pete and his crew. They all gave false names and bonded out. They then went back to New York before the police in NC could figure out who they really were. SMM continued operating in NC, but the next time Pistol Pete would come back was in a prison van. But for the time being, Pistol Pete would forget about the case. He had bigger problems waiting for him back in New York. In the 1990s, SMM would commit dozens of murders across New York in order to maintain control of the streets. In 1994, Pistol Pete would kill a rival drug dealer named Carlton Hines. Hines was another legendary hustler from New York who had one foot in the streets and the other foot on the ball court as a local basketball star with a college scholarship. But there must have been some beef between them after Pistol Pete shot and killed Hines as he was coming out of a stereo shop. Pistol Pete would also hit one of Hines' friends during the shooting before later finishing the job, fearing that Hines' friend would cooperate in a potential murder case. This didn't stop the police from catching on, and Pistol Pete was arrested a year later for the murder of Carlton Hines and shipped to Rikers Island. While on the island, he was approached by members of the Bloods. The United Blood Nation, or UBN, was formed in Rikers Island 2 years before Pistol Pete got there. The UBN heard about him and wanted Pistol Pete to join. However, Pistol Pete said he wasn't a follower and that he would only join if they let him create his own set under the UBN umbrella. The Bloods.
I like the little nigga. I ain't gonna lie. I like the nigga. I do. I know. Now, the thing is, and one of my reasons for liking this nigga is because he's getting on niggas that are his enemies. You see what I'm saying? Another thing that I respect about him too is also, he not just going out and hunting for motherfuckers that don't have nothing to do with nothing. He not just, and another thing is also, I'm gonna say this, he ain't raped no fucking body. Okay? I respect any nigga that ain't how to take another nigga manhood. But I'm gonna say this, the nigga really fucked himself up, by doing this, because if niggas don't know, jails keep records of shit like this and they pay attention to shit like this. Another thing too, he is smart though. He made them niggas get him his own fucking game. He gave him his own area and field to work with. And another thing is too, you gotta know how much respect that nigga must have had in the streets at that time. So I can only imagine how much work would he had to get that offered to him from some adult ass niggas, and he just kind of coming into that age. Yeah, we gonna continue though.
And SMM then became its own set under the UBN umbrella, joining other blood sets, such as the 9 Trey Gangsters, the same gang that 6ix9ine would later snitch on. Pistol Pete would continue running SMM from behind bars. He eventually managed to make bail and return back to Soundview. Pistol Pete put all of Soundview onto the blood thing, and soon, the whole neighborhood was painted in red. But 2 weeks after being released, Pistol Pete would return to court, where they would drop the charge for the Carlton Hines murder, citing a lack of witnesses. However, the North Carolina drug case would come back to haunt him. The police Police and NC had identified the fingerprints submitted during Pistol Pete's prior arrest, and were now bringing a drug case against him. New York authorities then arrested Pistol Pete at the courthouse, and sent him to North Carolina to face those charges. He was only 21 at the time, but it would be the last time Pistol Pete would ever be a free man. Pistol Pete was convicted on federal drug and gun charges, and sentenced to 45 years in prison. Most of his crew had turned on him, and police have also intercepted dozens of jail letters, which they used to show that Pistol Pete was still running SMM while on Rikers Island. Here's the thing though, you would think getting hit with 45 years would spell the end of this story, but Pistol Pete was a
Listen, this is why the fuck I made this channel do what it do now. This nigga was only 21 years old and had his whole fucking life snatched away from him, man. He had just got popping for real, in a sense of his coming into age, is what I'm saying. As far as the street shit, I'm not meaning that. I mean becoming a man. Another thing is also, he was smart enough to kill a motherfucker that was a witness. A lot of you niggas ain't smart enough to kill the motherfuckers that's the witness. Okay, I'm just saying. He was a witness. If you know you got a witness, kill a motherfucker. This is why they be saying you don't want nobody there for the crime. Niggas don't be thinking like that. They be leaving niggas to breathe so they can tell a story. These niggas is dumb. Another thing is, whoever the fuck the client nigga is, he should have never been on the street in the first place. You have so much going for yourself. You have more going for yourself than this nigga had in the first place. So what was your point in being where you was? I understand you probably was trying to eat and all of that, but you have a whole nother set of M's on the other side of the motherfucking fence. Had you just stayed the fuck out the street, my nigga. But we finna finish the rest of this. Niggas don't be thinking 100%. I'm just gonna keep saying this. Niggas don't use this, bro. It's not really that hard. Use this, not this, and damn sure not this all the damn time. Just start using it just a little bit. It'll help go way further.
breed. He continued running SMM from behind bars, issuing orders from his jail cell, including orders to murder. But the police wouldn't let this slide. A federal indictment was eventually unsealed back in New York, and Pistol Pete and 10 other members of SMM were hit with the RICO. The feds claiming that SMM was a criminal organization that operated a large drug operation, committed robberies, and did murder for hire. They pinned at least 9 murders to the group, saying that Pistol Pete was ordering people killed from his jail cell. One of the hits he ordered would go down in local history. Pistol Pete was worried that one of his associates would cooperate on the NC drug case, so he ordered his murder. His associate and another man were then gunned down at a community football game in what came to be known as the Thanksgiving Day murders. Pistol Pete ended up pleading guilty to racketeering in order to avoid a potential death penalty case. In the same courthouse where his father had been sentenced 20 years prior, Pistol Pete would get 3 back-to-back life sentences, plus an additional 105 years, ensuring that he would die in prison. However, the government went further to deny him even the most basic comforts. Since Pistol Pete had a history of running SMM behind bars, the government shipped him to Florence ADX, America's only federal supermax. For the past 20 years, Pistol Pete has been held in solitary confinement, with only his close family and lawyer being able to contact him. After Pistol Pete was convicted for the last time, New York police would go to Soundview and distribute flyers with his face on them and a caption saying, "Don't be next." They knew the power that Pistol Pete had and wanted to stop kids from looking up to him.
Boy, do you realize how much of a fucking joke you gotta be to the government? They did that to Alpo. They put Alpo dog food on the thing when they caught him. How police be is so fucking especially when you're a big criminal, bro. Especially back then, they was dicks. But no, this is literally a cautionary tale, bro. Literally a cautionary tale, because I keep saying this. What you're doing in jail is not being unwatched. Everything you do is in jail is watched. Your letters, your everything that come through, even the phone calls that you making, even the ones that you doing when you in the thing and you visiting, and motherfuckers is behind that glass or not behind that glass, and you just being monitored. Motherfuckers is listening. Motherfuckers is recording some of them calls when, well, not the calls, but when you them visits, when you on that phone and you speaking. That's the reason why you gotta speak so loud through the damn thing or through the phone thing in order to speak to motherfuckers, because they're recording all of that shit. They paying attention to what you're doing, every move you make. So when you thinking you just out here being slick and shit, you're not. And they gonna another thing is too, they gonna find some way to turn your homies against you, because at the end of the day, them niggas don't want to go to jail. Nobody wants to go to jail, bro. But I don't understand why niggas be so quick to go start doing crimes and dumb shit like that. But don't nobody want to go to jail. When it's time to go to jail, this is what happens. They snitch on you and they put you out. Now you out here on your own. My mans ain't even getting no visits for real. My mans can't even see the outside, not even the outside world, but the outside of his cell for like that long, probably. I think it's like an hour or something like that when you on solitary confinement, and he's been on solitary confinement throughout his entire prison, like capture pretty much. I can only imagine what the fuck his brain done went through, man. Y'all let me know what the fuck y'all think about Sex, Money, Murder, man. Should we go deeper? Should we not? What's up? You know what I'm saying? Fuck with your boy. Like, subscribe, and all that good shit. You know what I'm saying? Do whatever the fuck y'all want to do. You know, this is my channel. I really don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Handle it. Boom.